Better Together podcast.
Welcome to the Better Together podcast from the Fuquay Verena Chamber of Commerce. We are recording today from the Dashmore Conference Room and Studio, sponsored by Rescued Wood Rehab. The Better Together podcast highlights local businesses each week as the Fuquay Verena Chamber of Commerce continues to promote amazing business, an amazing business community. I'm Marty Woodward, and I can talk, and I'm from Rescue Wood Rehab, and I'm joined by my fantastic co-host, the one, the only Brad Marshall from Greater Culture CrossFit here in Fuquay Verena. Brad, how are you this afternoon?
Doing pretty good, Marty. How about yourself?
I'm super excited. We get one of our fellow board members from the Chamber of Commerce to join us on this podcast.
Yeah, you get to design stuff that goes in the room. She gets to design the room itself. So we've got Jessica Swanson here from Turpentine Design. Jess, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, and so we were chatting a little bit before about how excited you are to share a little bit about your business and the way that you've impacted the community. So tell people a little bit about Turpentine Design.
Yeah, so Turpentine Design is a commercial architecture and interior design firm. We're here in Fuquay, obviously. That's why I'm here today. But we do, a little bit of everything. We're a small group, so we focus our attention on commercial projects. But we haven't really found our niche yet. So we're nimble, we're flexible, we can kind of do a little bit of it all. We do a little bit of, retail, hospitality, aviation, commercial office spaces, everything that you can kind of think of that would be in the commercial realm. We stay away from residential for the most part. That's not really something that we enjoy to do a whole lot of, but anything commercial is, we're all ears and ready to listen to what somebody brings to us. So.
Yeah, and so working in the architecture space, something you've been doing for a long time now. So what got you excited and interested to get into architecture and design in that industry?
No, that's a good question. So I went to school way back in the day to go play soccer. I did not go to school to get an education. So I got a soccer scholarship to go to East Carolina University. I went there and, played soccer there. And one day just trying to, at some point you have to pick a major. So back then, it was a physical book. So I opened the book up and went through the long list of majors that they had, and interior design was one of them. So I actually got my undergrad in interior design and started working at a residential type of firm doing kitchen and bath design, and frankly, absolutely hated it. Knew very quickly that residential was not something that I wanted to do. So then I got a job at an architecture firm in Raleigh. So I moved back to Raleigh, worked for this architecture firm for a while, and really, really enjoyed it a lot. And I was doing, somewhat the job of an architect as an interior designer. I was doing wall sections and plan details and all the stuff that an interior designer typically doesn't do. And I was like, you know what? Well, let's go back to school and get an architecture degree so I can actually become an architect. So at that point, I kept working and got accepted into NC State's design school. Started, going to school, kept working while doing that at other local architecture firms, and, eventually finally graduated, and then eventually got my license and continued to work at local firms. And then it kind of spun from there. I mean, I grew up with a father who is in the construction business. He owns his own construction company, and so I kind of grew up around it, but never really thought it was going to be something that I was going to do. I thought I was going to stay in sports forever in some shape or form, and it just kind of pivoted, and that's, I ended back up in that same job realm, I guess, kind of full circle as what I kind of grew up around with my dad. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today, at least being in architecture and design.
Yeah, it's funny how sometimes you stumble into the line of work that you're in, and then you grow to love it and get passionate about it and go explore new ways to do the work. And along the way, you got the idea that, hey, you'd like to start your own firm because you worked for a lot of firms up in Raleigh for a while. So talk to us a little bit about the journey of moving from a big firm in the big city to, I want to go local and I want to start my own thing.
Yeah. So I worked at these big firms for a while, and granted, I loved it. I mean, I loved my job. I loved what I did. The drive was kind of starting to get to me a little bit, driving all the way to North Raleigh, every single day, 5 days a week. And so an opportunity kind of presented itself for me to leave where I was and, again, growing up with an entrepreneurial father, I knew this was something I always wanted to do, but you're kind of scared to take the leap. I was always a little bit nervous to do it. But then an opportunity presented itself for me to leave where I was at and to start something on my own. And I took it. And so, it's been a journey to where we are now, but it was something that I wanted to do and just kind of went, all in, threw myself into the fire and just kind of figured it out, and asked the right questions to the right people to kind of get it off the ground. But, yeah, it was something that was really scary, but it needed to happen, and I'm so glad that it did. So
Yeah, I feel like it's a common theme we have been hearing on a lot of these podcasts that sooner or later there's a risk, and you got to decide, is it worth it, and is it time for the risk? And everybody who's taking it is like, we're excited, we have jumped in. And I imagine along the way there certainly is some challenges. So when you think about how Turpentine has grown over the last couple of years, what are some of the challenges you faced as a business owner?
gosh, where do you even start? Well, at first, Turpentine was just me in the beginning. I left my call it my big girl job and kind of went off on my own. And it was just me and my computer on my kitchen counter. And that's how I did it for probably almost the entire first year of Turpentine was just me by myself, figuring it out, using, your connections as much as you can, down from a lawyer to an accountant to my dad to, anybody that you kind of can connect with. And it's kind of grown into what it is today, where I moved from, just me on my kitchen counter to, oh, now I'm in a co-working space to, oh, now I've hired my first employee to now we're 5 people deep. So and we are in an actual office now too, which is very exciting. And so there's every challenge under the sun. I feel like you get met with, and a lot of them are ones that you don't even predict to come up. That's the unexpected things that you kind of have to be able to pivot very, very quickly, or reach out to somebody that might know a little bit more about that situation than you do. And that's what I also think is always very fun about running your own business too, is you're presented with a different challenge every single day, from, something legal to, how do I run payroll correctly in this new software that I've gotten. So it's always something that you're trying to pivot on. And we're always constantly trying to just be, how can we make things easier for our staff, as far as being efficient? What type of technology can we bring in? What type of program, software, all the way down to, just how I communicate with them. What is the best way to do that? So, I think that's the one thing about owning your own business and being an entrepreneur is just there's no challenge that couldn't come up that you're going to face in some shape or form.
Yeah, that's the name of the game. It's just problem solving, sometimes putting out fires, sometimes trying to get ahead of the curve, but a lot of that goes into it. So I think those challenges, as well as taking that risk, it's always fun, though, when you get to the other side of it.
Yeah.
So, Jess, you mentioned commercial architecture and design. So what are some of those services? If someone was looking for a particular service, what are some of those services that Turpentine offers?
Yeah, so we offer a vast majority of different types of services, from, master planning, where, you have a site, say from a half an acre to 40 acres, and then trying to figure out, we can figure out what can go on that site, what you're trying to work through. If it's a park, if it's we're working on a 37-acre property at the Wilmington Airport here in North Carolina. So that's multiple buildings kind of over this entire site, down to, just one building that maybe needs some parking, and the building itself, and maybe they have a dumpster or whatever. And that we also consider that a little bit of master planning. So that's one thing that we typically do. We also have, we can do some graphic design is another service that we're able to offer. But then just all the way down to something as simple as literal interior design, when it comes down to, you have a space that you're a new business, you're taking over this, 1,500 square foot space. You need interior design at that point, where we're doing layouts, making sure we meet code, making sure people can safely get out of the building, helping them select their finished materials, from carpets to flooring to paint colors to countertops to cabinets, all of that kind of stuff. And then just strictly architecture is another service that, we provide, from that master planning, where it's more conceptual, to, hey, we're working with all of our engineers, we're bringing, this building that is, on plan, kind of flat 2D, and getting this thing vertical and off the ground. And so we kind of offer this full service architecture where we also coordinate with all of the engineers that could possibly need to be on your project. So when I say that, I mean from civil engineering to structural engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Right now, we're also doing some stuff with IT and AV vendors, talking about acoustics. If we bring in another interior designer for whatever reason and we're not doing it in-house, there's all kinds of, we kind of manage all of that. So you don't have to worry about it. It's kind of a full service from start all the way to finish. And then we also just do things as simple as test fits. And when I say test fits, it's say you are a business and you don't know, you haven't exactly found your space yet. You're looking at multiple different properties. Hey, we need to do this test fit type of feasibility study. Like, okay, what can we fit in the space? Does it serve what we're trying to accomplish? Does it meet our entire program? Are we able to fit all the offices that we need? Does it give us enough space for our retail displays or whatever it is? Those feasibility studies allows somebody, as they're working through leases with their broker and all of that, to make decisions. And also it allows, if it's an existing building that might be 30 years old, electrical might be out of date. You might need to upgrade your electrical service or upgrade your water service or anything like that, and making sure it allows our clients to make the best decisions for themselves before they sign on the dotted line. And so that's something that, we're in the customer service industry. I preach this to the girls that work at our office all the time. Yes, we're architects, and yes, we're interior designers, and we can make stuff look pretty. But at the end of the day, we're in the customer service industry, and we're trying to, serve our clients as best as we can. And so just, having them in mind with basically every decision that we make or every problem that we're trying to help solve for them is, trying to keep their best interests at heart with everything that we're doing. As an architect, our duty is for the welfare and safety of the public, because we have to make sure that, our buildings can stand up, our buildings aren't going to fall down, and if there's an emergency for whatever reason, it's a fire, it's a whatever it might be, that people can get out safely. That's like our prime duty, but we're also, just trying to make sure that we're giving the best service to our customers that we can.
So you've worked in multiple firms, right?
Yes.
And now having your own firm. What makes Turpentine Design maybe different from some of your prior experiences with other firms you've worked with?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is that customer service that we're saying. A lot of times, I feel like architecture and interior design is what's coming first a lot of the times, and maybe some things with clients might get sacrificed because of that. But that's not really the world that we're trying to be in. We're trying to be in that customer service industry. Yes, we're trying to make beautiful things, no doubt about it. That is a number 2 priority in the grand scheme of everything that's going on, is we're trying to do good architecture that's going to be long lasting. That architecture, that building is going to be here a lot longer than I'm going to be here. And so making sure that that is going to be something that can stand the test of time, but also, just making sure that we're constantly keeping our clients informed, constantly trying to make sure that we're getting everything that they need. And if we can't get what they need, we're transparent about that. We're working together. They bring us a problem, and we're trying to help them solve a problem. Everybody that's trying to get into a space is they have some type of problem. And so trying to pick what those pain points are from them and being able to help bring those, maybe make them a little less painful, and trying to solve them as best we can. So.
Sure. And now you've been involved with the Fuquay Verena Chamber of Commerce and a member of the board of directors. But there's also lots of other community involvement that Turpentine's been involved with. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to as you've grown your business.
Yeah, so we've been able to do some fun things around town, which we're pretty proud of. I think the biggest one that everybody's probably the most familiar with in town is the Library Steakhouse. So that was one of the early projects that got brought to us, and we were able to help bring the old library building back to life a little bit. So that was pretty fun to be able to do that. Charles and was a great client to be able to work with and bring that to life. And I live right around the corner from the library, so I go there often and get to enjoy it and look at it, but also get to eat the great food that's there. So that's a big one that I think everybody probably is able to point at. But then there's some smaller ones that we've done too, as far as, we did OSI's space and helped bring that to life here in town, and helping Danny move from that small location to now her much larger location that also has the pickleball courts in it, with Kat and their group. So we've done a few things in town, but we try to partner with as many people as we can, in town, and do things with the chamber and other local groups, whether it's, we're doing their space or not. But just being involved in that and staying in front of it as much as we can. The chamber is, without the chamber, Turpentine wouldn't be where it is today. Even just from a branding standpoint of people knowing who we are and what we do, not necessarily that we've done a ton of work with people through the chamber, but being involved in the community, I think is huge. And we've made connections through the chamber in ways other than just doing people's spaces. For instance, I know we did Lollipop Space when they opened, and with Jeff and Krista over there, which was a lot of fun. But now Jeff is my banker, and so there's ways that we've connected with people and other businesses in the chamber that just aren't directly, we get to do their space and they're paying us to do our space. It's more than that. It's more than just the dollar of being able to do work for them. It's the connections that you're making, and long-term connections too, that I met somebody and maybe nothing comes around in 5 years, maybe something does, and they think of us over someone else when their time comes. So
yeah, I think it's something we hear time and time again, is how relationship driven the community is. Get to know everyone in the community. They get to work together. You can point people in the right direction. So it's something that comes up time and time again. And I'm imagining that as you've continued to grow Turpentine over the years, like you said, going from individual to now 5 employees, there's certainly some lessons you've learned along the way. So what are some of the big lessons that stand out to you that you've learned as a business owner here in town?
I think a lot about growing a business, sometimes to speed up as you have to slow down. Is a lot of times I want to make something seems like it's on fire and you have to make a decision fast, and sometimes if you just take the extra day or 2 days to ultimately make your decision, if it's something big enough that needs that amount of time, I think is a big one. Is in the beginning I just thought I have to do this as fast as I can. And sometimes it's just you got to slow down a second, talk to the right people if you need to talk to those people. Or just, take the time for yourself to help with that. I think that is a big one for me, is that I just learned, slow down a little bit. It's going to be okay. It'll be there tomorrow. And unless literally it's on fire, it's all right. And so just slowing down a little bit sometimes to make the right decision, I think is the best call.
Yeah, I almost feel like that with entrepreneurs. Like, you're always trying to put the customer first. And so if they ask for something, it's like, I got to respond right now or solve this problem. And sometimes slowing down can be really, really helpful. And so you took the leap of going from a firm to starting your own business. Other entrepreneurs out there might be considering the same thing of, hey, I've got this idea. I maybe want to start my own business or get something up and running. What sort of words of wisdom would you provide to somebody who's maybe an aspiring entrepreneur?
I say just do it. I think also, do your research. Make sure that, you're asking ChatGPT, or whatever. You're using those, Chatty is my best friend. I use him as my personal assistant all the time to help, with things, even down to, personal things, as far as he can be a really great therapist if you ask him lots of deep questions. So I think, using your resources and getting your ducks in a row, but just do it. Trust in yourself. Talk to the people that you need to talk to, and just do it. I did this recently with a group of friends where, it was an idea I had, a year ago or so. Didn't think I could really implement it, and then put it in front of them and said, hey, I think I want to do this, but I need some help to be able to do it. Brought them all on board, and we recently started another company that's called the Front Step Co., which is, concierge pumpkin delivery services, which is kind of outside the realm of a normal business, I would say, a luxury type service, but it's something that I thought, I think we can do this. Let's just dive in and see what happens. And so we did a little bit of research. We got our ducks in a row, and this was our first season for something like that. So, I think now that I've started 1, 2, and probably 3 businesses here very soon, it's fun and it's exciting, and sometimes I think you can only get yourself in so much trouble, so it's worth it to just take the leap.
That's why you have an LLC. That's why you have an LLC. It gets you out of jail free, right?
I love it.
Right.
Yeah,
I
so
love it.
I love it, and I think that's something we've heard from other guests as well. Is once you get the entrepreneur bug and things go well, or you start to figure things out, you start to figure out, hey, this is fun. How do I potentially do this in another area or different area? So just do it. Take the dive and see if I've got all the questions answered and I've got the people to support me. How do I continue to do that? And so as you think about Turpentine, to see where you started to where you are now, to potentially even where you'd like to go, do you think of any, either if you want to think of it in terms of upcoming projects or goals, or where you'd love to see Turpentine go over the next couple of years or in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we're on this just, I feel like we're on a rocket right now, to be honest. Our growth has just been exponential in the last year or so. I mean, we hired 2 new people just last week. We had 2 new people start. And so it's been, I feel like I'm on this rocket ship that I wish would slow down a little bit, to be honest, just because it feels like you can't keep up a little bit. But I also love the growth, and I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to be able to serve the community. I mean, we're having projects show up at our door that in the local community that is just really, really exciting to know, that this stuff is coming to the area. And maybe not necessarily Fuquay, some of it's, out in the Triangle area as a whole. But I mean, our goal is to be the architecture firm that's in South Wake County, or Southern Wake County. There's not a whole lot of us here in general. I mean, the architecture world is fairly small to begin with, but in Southern Wake County, there's definitely not very many of us. And so we want to be known as that group that can serve the community as best we can, and in the Triangle as well. But primarily, I mean, I love doing work here in Fuquay. I've lived here now for 15 years. My husband's here, worked here for a long time. And so now that I'm not driving, to North Raleigh every single day like I used to, 3+ years ago, and now I'm really, really engulfed in the community, I want to be as heavily involved as I really can, and being able to serve that local community, business community for the most part. But behind every business is also that, that person that you get the relationship with. So that's what we want to do. We want to be known as that group.
So you've ingrained yourself in Fuquay Verena, so you probably have a favorite place or places that you like to go, whether it be events or businesses. What are some of the places that you frequent?
Yeah, so I mean, one of them sitting right here at this table right now. I'm an active member of Greater Culture CrossFit, so I'm there at least 5 days a week. So I spend a lot of time at the CrossFit gym doing that. But then, I mean, we do a little bit of everything in this town. I mean, we live in downtown Fuquay, so I walk to a lot of local restaurants. Like I mentioned, the library earlier. That's one of our favorite, date night spots, is to walk over there and do that. But we try to invest in the town as much as we can. I mean, Marty, I know I've used you for some signage stuff at our firm, doing our logo on a really beautiful piece of I would say art that ended up on our wall now. So if I can use somebody in the town to be able to do something, that's my first go-to for sure.
That's great. That's great, and we certainly appreciate it. So you've gone through, this career, kind of transitioning as to what you wanted to do, and starting multiple businesses. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received in terms of business?
That's a good question. Advice would probably be to trust your gut. Sometimes, you reach out to those people that I keep mentioning for advice, and sometimes they give you their advice, but it might not really sit that good with you for whatever reason, or that well with you for whatever reason. And if something just doesn't seem right, I think trusting yourself, you know yourself better than anybody else does. And if something just doesn't seem like a good fit, don't be scared to say no. I learned that the hard way early in my career with Turpentine, when it was just me and trying to grow and get on that rocket ship that I was talking about earlier, is I would say yes to everything. It didn't matter what type of project, what type of client, what type of it just didn't matter. I was going to say yes because I just felt like I had to. We're privileged enough now to be in a position where I feel like we don't have to say yes to every single project that comes through or every single client that comes to our door. So I think the power of no is a big thing. And I think even if you say no, be in a position to maybe recommend that person to somebody else. Like, oh, we might not be a great fit for you, but X, Y, and Z is. And so just being able to, and in that way, you're also potentially helping somebody else in the local community. I mean, we've passed projects on before that just, we get residential people come to us all the time asking if we can do an addition to their house or helping them with the porch or helping them with their kitchen. And we have people that we can recommend them to. And so then we're able to, pass that on to somebody else here in the local community to be able to serve them in a better way than what we could just, instead of just saying yes to something. So I think there's a lot of power in the word no sometimes.
I love that fact that it's okay to say no, and it's not always is a right fit because it's not going to be good for the customer or for
either party.
Either party,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's an awesome piece of advice. Is there one surprising fact about Turpentine Design that people would just be like, really?
Well, I think there might be a couple things. So we are an all-female firm. So we have 5 females that work for us. So that's kind of become our brand. Everybody's like, every time I tell somebody, like last week, we hired 2 new people. They're like, are they female? I'm like, yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know. There's nothing against anything. It just is kind of how it's worked out. They've always been the best fit for what we're trying to accomplish. So that's always kind of cool, I think, to be able to say that, especially in such a male-dominated field that architecture and construction is. That we're 5 strong women that are able to kind of pull this off, and so that's always a really cool fact that I get to throw out there. And I think the other thing that I get asked a lot too is just the name of Turpentine Design. People ask me all the time, where did you come up with that name? Your logo is so cool, it's so beautiful. And I used a friend to help with the design of the logo as well here in town. But the name kind of comes from, when I was thinking of the name, I didn't want it to be, Jessica Swanson Architect or whatever. A lot of times architects kind of do that. Their firm is their name. I just didn't want that. The culture for Turpentine is very, very important to me and what we're trying to build as we're on this rocket ship. But so my husband and I were doing, some research of like, what do we want this name to be? And through our research to come up with the name, I wanted it to be something with North Carolina or whatever. And we discovered that one of the nicknames for the state of North Carolina is the Turpentine State, which I had no idea was, one of the nicknames for the state, because turpentine comes from pine trees. And obviously we have, a lot of pine trees in North Carolina. So I thought that was kind of cool. And Turpentine Design just kind of rolls off the tongue really well. It's long, but it runs off the tongue. And so we came up with the name, and then also just, with turpentine being an organic material that comes from these trees and from the environment, architecture is also kind of an organic process that you kind of go through when you're coming up with your designs. And, the building talks to the site, which talks to the environment, which talks to, the people that end up using the building and are the end user. Is, it's this organic, kind of beautiful process from start to finish. And so that's another thing that I thought was really cool when it came from turpentine being this organic material, but then also just the process of how architecture kind of works organically, that from pen to paper to ultimately this, computer software that now we use to bring these things to life it's just the process is really cool when you actually start to learn about it. And it's not us just clicking a button on AI. I know I joke about Chatty being my best friend, but it's we don't just press a button and all of this stuff just creates itself. It's a process, and it's a long process, and it's a thorough process. And I think that's one of the things that maybe the average person doesn't really understand about architecture, is that they do think it's, at the end of the day, oh, you make it look so simple, but it's not a simple process. It's a very thorough and thoughtful process to get from, dirt and a piece of paper to ultimately a 3D object that you ultimately are living in and breathing in and spending probably more of your time in than you do your home a lot of the times, even if it's just your office. I mean, I know I spend more time in my office than I do at my own house. And so just making sure that building, which is also a living and breathing thing. I mean, you have to condition it, you have to put water in it, you have to get electricity to it and be able to, add all these materials to it that may or may not have, VOCs, and like thinking about the environment in that way. And so the name, I guess, full circle here, the name for Turpentine is always a fun thing to kind of tell people about because it's very unique.
I love that story. That's awesome.
I'm such a fan of origin stories for people, how they get into the work they've got into, but also then how they come up with branding and naming. And yeah, the logo is fantastic. The name is great. It's all awesome. So I know there's probably a lot of listeners out there, especially with how fast the community of businesses is growing in Fuquay Verena, who maybe are interested in upskilling or designing or improving maybe the space they're in or looking at new spaces. So for anyone out there who's interested in learning more about the work you do or getting in touch with you, especially on the commercial side, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say probably my email is the best way to get in touch with me. My voicemail tends to stay full a lot. I hate to admit that. But yeah, my email is probably the best way to get up with me, which would be jess@turpentine-design.com. You can also go to our website. There's a questionnaire form or something along those lines, or a contact form that you can fill out that'll get to me as well. So those are probably the best ways to find me. Phone is probably not the best. It might take me a couple days to get back to you.
And so for anyone out there who's interested in perhaps the concierge delivery service for pumpkins and designing, what about that one, Front Step Co.?
Yeah, that one you probably need to go to our website. So we're pretty active on social media. So that's at the Front Step Co. _ is our Instagram, and also I believe that's also our Facebook. But our website, thefrontstepco.com, would be the best way to kind of see. You're able to go on there, kind of see everything that we're offering right now. We're bringing on new services all the time. We just released a new one yesterday. It may have been yesterday, the day before yesterday, for Thanksgiving tablescapes. So if anybody is interested in that, you can fill out a form and send that in. But you're able to see there, all of our pumpkin concierge services, that the different packages that we offer. But also Christmas is coming. We have not released that yet, but we've been deeply talking about that, and so that'll be the next thing that we'll be releasing probably in the next couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. Great opportunities to connect for Turpentine Design, Front Step Co. So you are a member of the Chamber of Commerce board. You've been heavily involved in the community. So when you think about being involved with the Chamber of Commerce and the benefits to that, what are some of the things that come to mind for you of how important or how valuable it's been?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, without the Chamber, I don't think Turpentine would be where it's at right now. We also, for the Front Step Co., were able to recently do some decorating for our annual meeting that we had, which was very exciting and fun to do. But with the Chamber is just, the relationships that you're able to build with the Chamber and those connections, I think are, they're unmatched in the community. Everybody that's involved is, loves to be in this community. We're the fastest growing community, it seems like, in the state of North Carolina right now. Not only just the Chamber, but just the town in general is just astronomically, compared to the 15 years ago when I moved here, it's just insane. And so being able to see that growth has been really, really exciting. And so I think those relationships that you're able to build, whether it's, me going to the gym, Brad, with you guys, and just meeting somebody through there. I mean, it's the most off the cuff meetup sometimes that you never expected. Showing up to a breakfast and you're meeting someone that you would have never met otherwise is just it's crazy. You don't know what is in everybody's brain of what they have going on, and you go to a breakfast and you get to say what you do, and all of a sudden they're connecting the dots, like, oh my gosh, I can talk to this person. And there's been multiple times maybe the project didn't come to fruition for whatever reason, but the connection that you're able to make, and now that person can tell the next person who tells the next person about you. It's just staying in front of the community and connecting with the community and helping each other out as best you can, just with a simple favor, or just some advice sometimes is all that somebody is after, or vice versa, you might be after it. And so I think those connections are just they're undeniable when it comes to the local community, because everybody knows what's going on here. Someone from three towns over doesn't know what's happening right here, right now. And so all of these businesses that are engulfed in this community, they just really know what's going on, whether it's to town events to, a ribbon cutting down the street. So I think being involved is you can't deny the relationships that are built in that way, organically too, a lot of times.
Yeah, I think that's one of the top things we hear time and time again. If somebody's interested in starting a business and growing a business, it's a relationship-driven industry where you have to get out there and get to meet and know other people. Let them know what you do. You can figure out how you can serve them. They can serve you, and it benefits everybody. And so with that, Jess, thanks so much for being a guest on the podcast today. Jess with Turpentine Design and Front Step Co. right here in Fuquay Verena.
And thank you, Jess, and thank
Yes,
you to our
thank you.
listeners. Join us each week on the Better Together podcast from the Fuquay Verena Chamber of Commerce as we highlight a great local business or businesses. From the Dashmore Conference Room and Studio, sponsored by Rescued Wood Rehab, I am Marty.
And I'm Brad.
And we are Better Together.
We're better together. It's a weekly podcast. We're better together. You should know that there's more in the dash. We're better together. Fuquay Verena, Chamber of Commerce. We're better together podcast.